file write operation. Guys, again the first step is same. To write a file into HDFS, client needs to interact with the name node. Name node, the centerpiece of my cluster. Name node stores the metadata. Name node is having complete information about complete cluster data as well as slaves. So everyone have to firstly interact with the name node. What name node will do? Guys, again writing is also in parallel, distributed. Name node will provide the address of the slave on which client will start writing the data directly on that data node. Now, it's a little important, little interesting. My client won't send 3 copies if my replication factor is 3. My client will send just 1 copy. If client sends 3 copies, it would be overhead. You can understand traffic over the network. If he want to write 10 TB of data, he have to send 30 TB of data. No, I don't want that. As soon as client finishes writing the block, the slave starts copying the block to another slave, which in turn start copying to another slave. Slaves replicate the data amongst themselves. Client will send just 1 copy, and suppose your application factor is 10, automatically slave will create 9 more replicas in between them. After the required replicas are created, then it will send the acknowledgement to the client. So guys, authentication process is same. It's similar. That is same as read. Let's understand the same thing via end-to-end flow. Again guys, the write operation, the file write operation we will understand in 2 iterations. First iteration will see just the overview, and in the second iteration will understand to the API level. Again, we have a client node. To write a file, client need to send a create request to the name node. Name node again will check for the access rights, whether this particular user or users have access to write on the specific path. If he is having the access, name node will provide the location to write the block. Now my client will directly go to the data node and start writing the packets there. Start writing the packets directly on the data node. As soon as my block is written, like suppose guys it has written block 1 here. The data node, suppose this is data node 1, this is data node 3, this is data node 7. The first data node will start sending the block, will start copying the block to the another data node. As soon as the second data node, that is data node 3, has written the block, this particular data node will start writing the block to the third data node, that is data node 7. As soon as the required level of replication is achieved, the acknowledgement will be sent. Like the acknowledgement will be start from the data node 7 to 3, 3 to 1, and then 1 to final acknowledgement will go to the client. Now guys, you will ask me, who will take the decision of the replication on which node? All the decision is taken care by your master only. So guys, just for the simplicity of figure, few lines is not drawn here like this. All the name node and data nodes are in the constant communication, so don't worry about whether the how name node will come to know which blocks are written on which data node. Data node will report the same. Let's understand the same flow. Client node, that is having a JVM, a client JVM running, a JVM, a Java virtual machine will be running on this particular client node. So guys, again the first component, first class coming to the picture is my client. My client, HDFS client, my class will send the request to file system API. It will send a create request to file system API now. My file system API will send create request to the name node. Now name node will provide the address of slaves. Go and write here, go and write there. My client will directly go to the data node to write. How? Client will send a write request to output stream. Guys, for reading we had input stream. For writing, we have output stream. So here we have FS data output stream, which will start writing the packets directly on the data node. So guys, data write pipeline would be the same what we discussed. Firstly, the block will be copied on the first node. Then this particular slave will write the block to another data node. That in turn write the block to another data node. Now, the acknowledgement will go in the reverse order. That is, third data node will send acknowledgement to second, second will send to first, and then final acknowledgement will go to the client. The acknowledgement, the step number 5, that will go in the reverse way. 3 to 2, 2 to 1, and then finally 1 to client. All these data nodes are in constant communication with the name node. Data node will send the block information to the name node. Now, the client who had this particular file, he is writing that file on my cluster in parallel. It's not like that firstly it has written block 1, then it will start writing block 2. No. Parallel to this particular write, there is another write going on. That is done like this is slave 7, slave 3, slave 2. So another write is happening in parallel. Although write operations are always costly, but it's not that much costly that it will write the data in serialized order. Because guys, if it writes in the serialized order, to write terabytes of data, it will need days. While writing, if any data node goes down, no issues. Name node will provide the address of another data node where the data node need to copy. While writing, suppose this particular data node went down, no issues. Again, name node will provide the address of another node. So guys, while write or while read, if any failure occurs, don't worry, that will taken care automatically. Now, there is always a question that I am having this particular file, who will divide this file into smaller blocks? Do I need to divide? Do client need to divide? Do client node need to divide? Who exactly will divide? Earlier I answered guys, the framework will divide. What part of framework will divide? Your client will divide. Your HDFS client, your Hadoop client, that will divide. Now what is a Hadoop client? Hadoop setup itself will act as a Hadoop client. You don't need to write any program, you don't need to code, you don't need to specify any logic to divide, to split the file. Don't worry. HDFS client, Hadoop client itself will divide that. Now how or who will be the Hadoop client? Will my Eclipse is Hadoop client, or will my laptop is a client? No. The Hadoop setup itself is having all the APIs of the client. So Hadoop setup itself will act as a client. Who is your client? You are the client. Will you divide? No. Is your machine the HDFS client? That will divide? No. Who will act as the client? My HDFS setup itself will be acting as a client. I can specify my HDFS setup here or on the data node or at any place. That itself will act as a client. So guys, that's it about the file write operation. Guys, there is always a question in the certification as well as in the interview for read and write operations.